Hello, welcome back. This is Fat and Angry. He's fat and I'm angry. And we're doing continuation of what we were talking about in the last video. Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein. The last video was just running a bit long, and I didn't think we'd have enough time to properly talk about Bride of Frankenstein without running close to 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be posting this one like literally right after I post the Frankenstein review. So if everything works well, this is going to pop up right after it. Like, as long as it just takes me to render the fucker and upload it right after the first one. So let's continue where we left off. We left off with Frankenstein, and so now let's move on to the Bride of Frankenstein.
All right.
As mentioned, it was done in 1935, 4 years after the original Frankenstein. They have the same actor to play Henry, and the same... Is it the same actress that played Elizabeth?
No, she definitely was a different actress.
All right.
But
completely different hairstyle, at least.
Yeah. She didn't look a thing like the previous one to me, but the monster's still played by...
Boris Karloff.
Yeah. And...
there's a lot of fucking inconsistencies, but we'll get to that. So the first thing I want to mention...
that weird fucking opening.
Yes. Now, we mentioned on the first movie that it opens with a guy coming out like in a suit and explaining that you're about to watch a movie of terror, and
if you're a pussy, get out of the theater.
Yeah, get the fuck out. Grab your shit and go. Hit the brick, sling your hook, fuck off. And this one, they do something that was just downright
obnoxious?
Yes, obnoxious is a great word. I'm glad you chose it. They show a big castle like in a storm, and I was assuming that it was supposed to be Castle Frankenstein.
Yeah, that was my first thought too. It was like,
because like the first movie, the Baron and his son, their home is a castle nearby a village. You don't ever see the whole thing from an external shot, but I had to imagine it was a pretty good sized castle based on how they made the inside look. It looked pretty good size. If it wasn't a castle, it was a pretty big mansion.
Right.
But anyway, so it starts off and then it goes in and you see like this giant sitting room. And then we get three actors that are like dressed in like what, 1600s clothing? Like probably like late Renaissance, early Victorian era.
That's about where my brain was with that, yeah.
Like aristocratic fop getup, you know, powdered wigs, high collars, stockings, little pointy, like, you know, satin booties, just like cravats and like dickies and just like all the clothing that they don't make anymore, and damn good riddance to it.
The way this guy is speaking, it's almost like he wants to keep speaking because he enjoys masturbating to the sound of his own voice. So he's just...
you get like, what was he? Who did he say he was? Like Lord Byron?
I don't remember his name. I was just like, God, somebody throw him out the window, please.
It's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be Lord Byron, Schelling, Mr. Schelling, and then his wife, Mary Schelling.
Yeah.
And it's like them talking, and God, the conversation just...
It is not how people speak.
No, it is like... And you can almost hear, like, the foppish, like, you know, like, harp playing in the background. It's like, it's just... Everything about this scene is just deeply unpleasant to me. It's like, oh, look outside. This rainstorm is positively romantic. I can almost feel as if Zeus is trying to throw lightning bolts at my enlightened brain. Well, it's a shame he can't fucking hit you, because if you got hit by lightning, you'd be doing the world a fucking favor. God, this guy's voice just irritates the shit out of me. You get Mary Shelley, who's like doing like needlework, like while wearing this giant ass fucking dress, and every time the camera focuses on her, it goes into like that really blurry, like,
it's almost like a different film grain. It's weird.
It's like a bloom shot. Like if God, what was her name? Barbara Walters. If you've ever seen like Barbara Walters interviews from like the 80s and early 90s, it used to have this weird effect where like whenever the camera was on her, they had this like bloom, like this really glossy, foggy look on the film that made her look like she was just emanating glowing light, like she was some sort of angelic figure, while her guest was always like flat and like, you know, somewhat darkened. Like, you know, she was just she was the light of enlightenment dealing with this dirty pig man that she was interviewing at the time. I like to call it the Barbara Walters Bloom. And I'm pretty sure there was a word for it that wasn't that, but that's just the term I gave it. Like, yeah, she's got this, like, big, like, out-of-focus bloom on her. And, like, every time she talks, her upper lip curls up and exposes her weird upper teeth and gums. And I hate it when people talk like that. I call it the butthead lip. For those of you who are too young to remember, there was a show called Beavis and Butthead that was really popular in the 90s. And the way that Butthead, one of the characters, would talk, he would curl his upper lip up to expose his janky gums and brace-covered teeth. And I fucking hate it when people curl...
At least he has an excuse because of his braces, but, you know.
But I've seen people, like, you know, who talk like that, where, like, their bottom jaw doesn't go down, their upper lip goes up, and this is how they speak, and it's not fucking natural. The human mouth should not move that way. It's like, jaw goes down, not up. You don't talk like a Muppet where the top of your head just tilts back every time you open your mouth, and your jaw stays in one place, never moving.
But she mentions that she's terribly afraid of lightning, and, like, both the other male characters just, like, start piling on compliments about her work. And
it's like listening to the three richest, most pompous fucks in the world just, like, wank off verbally at each other.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a giant circle jerk of words. And it's just unpleasant, because, like, you come out of that feeling sticky and dirty.
Yeah, but at some point, one of the guys mentions, you know, it's a shame you left your story where it was, and she's like, oh, that wasn't the end of the story. And then it goes into the actual movie, and you don't
Thank God.
And you don't have to hear them ever again.
Yeah, they don't come out in the end, and that's, like, for good fucking reason. I would have, like, you know, it's like the movie ending was good except for this bullshit.
Right, they never, like, show up again to do an intermission or anything. It's great.
Yeah, if you're watching the movie and you get it on DVD, fucking skip that scene and just cut to the movie.
Yeah, it adds nothing.
It takes so much away. It adds nothing and takes everything. Anyway, so going on to the movie proper.
Special effects are still pretty good for their time. They hold up. This one actually has a soundtrack.
Yeah, it does. We mentioned that in the first one, but yeah, this one does have a soundtrack. It's not astounding. It's a very classic, simple soundtrack, but it's very much of its time, and it fits very well with the movie.
Yeah.
If you're watching a classic Universal monster movie, this is the kind of soundtrack you'd expect, the kind of soundtrack you want, and the kind of soundtrack you get.
Yeah, no, it starts off with the windmill scene.
Like right where the first movie leaves off.
Yeah,
Actually, a little bit before, because they leave out the scene with Baron Frankenstein and with, like, Henry Frankenstein recovering in his room.
Yeah. And they show the windmill, like, completely fall apart, which is something they didn't do in the original. And after the windmill falls, there's this one character that ends up showing up, and I did not care for her presence in the movie. She's an old lady. Her clothes kind of look like a gypsy, but not quite. Her
clothing reminds me of Carmen from, like, the opera, if you've ever seen it. Like, the idea of, like, this Spanish, like, you know, like, madam or something like that. Yeah. Like, you know, very, like, high collar. She's got, like, the weird headdress thing that comes out of her hair that, like, you know, sticks up. Like, very frilly outfit, very colorful. The movie's in black and white, but you can tell from all the various shades that, like, she's wearing a very, like, out there, loud, colorful dress.
Yeah,
and she speaks with a really just piercing Cockney accent.
Yeah, it almost feels like it's forced. But her acting is just way too over the top.
Yeah, she's like...
She's a really goofy character, and it doesn't seem like she was supposed to be, but just because of her...
You know who she reminds me of? She reminds me of the female housekeeper from the Sword and the Stone, that Disney movie.
Yeah.
It might have been the same actress.
Might have been.
But then again, Sword in the Stone, I believe, was in the 70s, so she probably was dead by that point because this was filmed in the 30s.
Yeah.
But I do recognize this actress. She played the innkeeper's wife in The Invisible Man, which came out in 1932, I believe.
It might have. That one I'm not familiar with, but I have it now, so I'll get to watch it.
Well, it came out before The Bride of Frankenstein. I know that. And for some reason, they completely write out the character of Baron Frankenstein, the father. I'm guessing because in the 4 years that actor probably died because they got an old actor to play the part of Henry's father in the first movie. So he might have passed away, they just couldn't get him, or they just felt that he wasn't necessary to the story and wrote him out of it.
Yeah.
But, and the Burgermeister, who is this fat, wiry-haired gentleman in the first movie, now is a tall, gaunt, old, wrinkly man with a deep voice with like a really fucking big, bushy
mustache.
Yeah.
It is definitely fake.
It looks like he's got a really hairy caterpillar, stapled to his upper lip. And, completely different voice, completely different body shape, completely different face. I don't know. I'm guessing they're assuming, he was a minor character in the first one. No one's going to, remember what he looked like anyway.
It was 4 years ago.
But, going from the first movie to the second, very quickly like we did, it's kind of jarring.
Yeah.
It's like the woman, she's got this voice, she's like, oh, the monster! She sounds like a fucking Monty Python character. She sounds like Terry Gilliam, doing the old lady voice.
Yeah, that's
not Terry Gilliam, Terry Jones.
Yeah, that's actually probably the most accurate way to pin it down.
It might have been what the Monty Python's based that old lady character on was her.
It might have been.
He's like, monster indeed. That's her catchphrase. She keeps saying that throughout the movie. Monster indeed. How is it going now? Is time to go back? Might be frightful, if you saw it.
I know we had a king.
He's not covered in shit. Black as spades they will. There goes the whole neighborhood.
I don't like spam.
Yeah, before we just turn this into nothing but quoting like Monty Python.
Monster indeed.
Yeah, so God, in every scene she shows up, her voice just pierces and cuts into your ear, and it just overrides all the other characters. And the camera focuses on her. It's you don't even need to have her in the shot. We can fucking hear her.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where she is.
She could have been on a different movie. We would have heard her.
So the Burgermaster, tells everyone, all right, the monster's dead. Go home. Fuck off.
You've had your fun. Sweet dreams.
It's like this lynch mob is officially over. We've made our kill. Time to go home. Our thirst for blood has been sated.
This purge was successful.
God bless the purge. God, I saw the first Purge movie. That one sucked.
I haven't watched any of them. The idea didn't appeal to me.
It's dumb. I don't understand it.
Maybe if they do a box set for $5, like I got some of my movies, I'll do it. But
man, it is getting close to that. They just need to stop making them long enough for them to put them all in a $5 box set.
Yeah.
If you like The Purge, well, you got your own problems to deal with. But anyway, so everyone decides to go back home, but
except for the father who lost his daughter.
Once again, different actor, and now he has a wife too.
It's either his wife or his mother.
One or the other. It's this old fat woman. It's he says he has to be sure. He wants to see the blackened bones of the monster to make sure. And the first thing I noticed is why are they referring to it as the monster? They didn't know it was a monster.
Right, they never referred to it as a monster.
In the first film, no.
And then he was too high up on the windmill for them to get a good view of him.
Yeah, especially through all the torch fire smoke.
Yeah.
So how do they know it was a monster? It just seems it's just bad writing. It's I'm guessing that they didn't go back and watch the original movie again when they wrote the second movie just to make sure they didn't screw anything up. So the farmer goes into the ruins of the mill looking for the monster to prove that he's dead, and he falls through the basement of the windmill into like this cavern that was under it.
Yeah.
And of course it's filled with water. And of course we find the monster, apparently when the whole thing collapsed, he didn't burn to death. He is burned.
Yeah.
He's like, you see his clothes are like torn and singed, and it looks like
he's got some additional scarring as well.
Yeah, it looks like he's got some facial burns and stuff. Like he's not completely like he's not like exposed like meat and bone or anything, but it looks like they messed him up a little bit to show that he was in the fire. He's in the water, which is what like probably saved him landing in the water. And when he sees the farmer in there, he's just like, oh, it's like, oh, you want to be in the water too? And he just like shoves the farmer's head under the water until the bubbles stop.
Yeah.
It's like your daughter didn't float. Let's see if you float. No? Oh well. And so he climbs up out, and of course the old woman's like, thinks it's her husband/son.
Yeah, she's not even looking. She's just got her hand down there calling to him in the opposite direction.
And so like the monster comes up, she starts screaming, and like he just shoves her into there, and they do this like this fucked up scene where like they get like this dummy that's meant to look like her, and like they throw her in there, but rather than her just like going into the water and splashing, it lands head first into like the steps of the ladder, making it look like she fell, busted her skull, and broke her fucking neck, impacted her spine, and then went into the water.
Yeah. So
even if she didn't break her skull on the step, she would have broken her fucking neck and then drowned because she wouldn't have been able to swim. That's a shitty way to die. I saw it, I'm like, oh no.
Bad. And then we have the unfortunate character. She turns around.
The lady Banshee.
Yeah.
Like, she sees the monster come out of the ruins and immediately like freaks out like some sort of like Looney Tunes character. She's like, ah! And fucking runs off like, flailing her arms around. We also, we go to the aftermath. They bring Henry back in like a cart, and they assume that he's dead because it sure as fuck looked like he died from that fall.
Yeah.
Even though like the first movie established that he survived, they bring him in and like, oh, I'm sorry. They bring him into his like,
tell me what's happened to my husband. How can we tell?
It's like, yeah, they bring him back. Like we said, the Baron's gone. But the fiance's still there, and like they bring him back, like his body, assuming that they're just bringing back a corpse for her to mourn. But like eventually, like he wakes up. Once again, no one knows how to check for a pulse or if someone's breathing. And
so everybody starts celebrating because they're going to get to have the wedding after all.
But then, like, the harpy woman comes up and she, like, runs up. And she must have been hauling ass to catch up with them as quick as she did.
Utilizing her Looney Tunes speed.
Her cartoon physics powers. She, like, runs up and starts screaming that, like, the monster's alive. The monster's not dead. It didn't burn up. And, of course, everyone just swears her off because everyone at this point is already,
She's
like,
clearly the town loony.
Is like everyone at this point is like fed up with her shit. They just tell her to shut up, which is not something you expect to hear in a movie from the 30s. You expect just like, oh, calm down, madam. Come to your senses.
Oh yeah, that's right. The burgomaster flat out tells her, "Oh, shut up."
It's like, damn, in like 35, that was a fucking insult. You might as well just was like, oh, get a step ladder so you can jump up my butt.
But yeah, they dismiss her.
And of course they keep bringing her back in the movie because you find out she works at like the Baron's castle.
Yeah.
It's like, oh god, we get more of her throughout the movie. Fucking of course. So we go back. Henry's recovering, and his fiancée is spending time with him. They're just waiting for him to recover so that they can get married. Meanwhile, the monster is like bombing around, and he's not exactly happy with the fact that people are still trying to hunt him down. While all this is going on, we get a new character introduced, Dr. Pretorius. And Dr. Pretorius is just an asshole.
Indeed.
They introduce him. He shows up at the Baron, who is now Henry Frankenstein, because apparently his father died from like being written out of the script. So now he's the Baron. They refer to him as the Baron, the good Baron, the Baron Frankenstein. He shows up to pay the good Baron a visit, and apparently he is aware that the monster that the people burned down is alive, and that it was obviously a result of Frankenstein's experiments, because he knew that Frankenstein was experimenting. It's explained that Pretorius is, of all things, a fucking philosophy teacher or professor at the college that Frankenstein was going to. And when Frankenstein decided to study, or like to leave the college to do experimentations in creating life from death, Pretorius did the same. Or he says he was booted out. I'm guessing because he was fucking crazy. So he wants Frankenstein, because he knows that Frankenstein was responsible for the monsters. Like, you created life from death. I've also been able to create life, and I've succeeded, just not in the way that you have.
Yeah.
Well, Frankenstein is like, Frankenstein's fiance explains to him, Elizabeth explains, like, look, you were trying to play God, and you were punished for it. Let's just be thankful that God didn't deem to kill you for, like, you know, going into areas that you should not have been fucking going into.
I mean, your kidneys are gone after that windmill fall, but...
You suffered severe kidney trauma. I'm pretty sure, like, back in those days, like, dialysis was just a bunch of leeches. God, imagine if that's what they did for you when you went going to dialysis.
Leeches? Well...
Like a shitload of them.
I wouldn't get my blood back, that's for sure.
I bet you thought about that for a good couple of seconds. A very thoughtful look came across your face.
Well, I'm debating whether it would have been worse or better.
So,
Dr. Pretorius.
yes, Dr. Pretorius. So, at this point, Frankenstein wants nothing to do with any more experiments. He wants to get married, then he wants to fuck off somewhere far, far away.
Yeah.
But Pretorius kind of like, he doesn't straight up threaten him, but he kind of tells him to the point, he's like, look, I know that the monster's still alive. I know that you created the monster, which means that you're kind of responsible for all those murders that happened. And so Frankenstein doesn't take kindly to that, but Pretorius eventually tells him, like, look, I've created life myself. Not quite as successfully as you, but I would love for you to come to my lab so I can show you. So Frankenstein, his curiosity is intrigued enough that he, like, goes that night, which I find to be kind of surprising, to go see. So Pretorius takes him to his home, takes him to his lab. He shows him that his experiment, Frankenstein created the monster by using corpses.
Yeah.
Pretorius explains that he made life out of, like, he says seeds.
Yeah,
he grew them in petri dishes. So he's got, like, these little bottles, and in the bottles, this looks like something from a fucking comedy. He's got this little woman that he dubbed the Queen. This little fat man that looks like a caricature of King Henry VIII is the king. He's literally eating a turkey leg as he's sitting there. He's like, what is that? That's not a turkey leg, obviously. Is that a caterpillar leg? What the fuck is it?
They actually censored that scene for the Chinese cut of it because they felt it was inappropriate to make a fool out of a king.
Oh, yeah, because, like, in China and Japan and most Asian countries, a king is considered a divine being.
Yeah.
But, like, they explained that when he created the king is, like, he immediately fell in love with the queen, and so he's infatuated with her, but the queen wants nothing to do with him. So you see, like, the king get out of his chair as soon as the veil's pulled off, and he starts banging on the glass, like, trying to get the queen's attention, waving to her, and she just starts chewing him out. And they use, like, that quick little, like, kind of chipmunk speak where they take text and they take speech and they speed it up towards incomprehensible gibberish. I actually like that. I love it when people fiddle with audio. So, like, I hear them, like, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. And so they show, like, there was one that didn't like the idea, so they made him the archbishop. And then he made the devil, and he says, like, he kind of looks like me, doesn't he? He's like, no. is just some like snidely whiplash looking motherfucker in a jar. Yeah. And then, like, what was the last one?
There was a dancer, which he said...
A ballerina that only danced to one song.
And he said, this last one's kind of mediacore. It was made from seaweed, and he pulls it out, and it's a mermaid.
Yeah, like in a jar. And then you see, like, another comedy, but you see the king actually... I don't know how the fuck he managed to do it. Like, he climbs up the glass inside of his jar, pokes a hole through the wax paper covering, and starts running across the table and banging on the glass of the queen's jar, trying to get at her. And so, like, Pretorius, like, has to use
there's the king again.
Is like, he gets the tweezers and he carries the king and puts him back in his jar and puts, like, a teacup on top of it on the lid. It's like, whoa, he's gonna fucking suffocate now. Because air. He explains that he's able to grow life. It's like his experiments are a lot more fucking successful. He's got fully functioning like humanoid creatures. The only problem is that they're really fucking tiny.
Yeah.
And they seem to all have a one-track mind. The queen just wants to order people around. The archbishop just wants to be stuffy. The king just wants to bury his bone in the queen. The ballerina just wants to dance, and the mermaid just likes preening herself.
And Satan, well, he seems content to just sit there.
Yeah, and like plot. He's like, I know what he's doing, but it's evil, whatever it is.
Right. He's just making a chili dog, an evil chili dog.
So, like, he says, like, he tells Frankenstein's like, look, I can make things out of almost nothing. I can grow them there, but I'm screwed because I can't get anything like human-sized. You are working with like what is essentially like run-down parts, but you got something that was human-sized. If we work together, we can make a true human being. I can grow some of the organs, and you can show me how to use like the base like corpses to make the basic framework.
Yeah.
So once Victor sees this, though, he doesn't like the idea of it, and he leaves. And so Pretorius is like trying to figure out how he's going to get Frankenstein to like join him. So cut to the monster. We see the monster like mucking about, like trying to avoid getting caught. He runs into a sheep herder woman who freaks out and freaks him out, and he ends up getting shot by a couple of people looking for him.
Well, she ends up falling into a small lake nearby.
Because people just love drowning themselves in his presence, don't they?
Yeah.
And he fishes her out this time.
Yeah, he goes to save her. And
he's like, I'm not going to let that happen again.
Yeah, and he's checking on her to make sure she's okay, and even though he just saved her, she's still freaking out. And that's when he gets shot.
Yeah, like some hunters come by and they hear the screaming, and so they shoot him in the arm. And eventually the monster finds himself at a hut where he hears music. And there's this old blind man in this hut. He's some sort of hermit. And you find out that he is blind. And just to show like what kind of atmosphere, once again, this is an old movie. So when the man says he's blind, it says, you'll have to excuse me, I'm blind. Because in those days, if you had a disability, you were considered to be an inconvenience to those around you. So nowadays it's all like, make way for me, I'm disabled, everyone needs to bend over backwards for me, which, if you can help them out, do it.
Yeah.
It's just like, don't be a dick to disabled people, they have enough of a hard time as it is. But I'm just saying, like, society has kind of like made its way to to help them.
Yeah.
But like back in the 30s, apparently, it's like, oh, please excuse me, I don't want to be an annoyance or a hindrance, but I'm blind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just saw that, and it kind of struck me as like, wow, times have fucking changed, haven't they?
But he invites the monster into his home, realizes the monster's wounded, and is like, come on in, let me take care of you.
Offers him some food, which that was something else I noticed. You never see the monster eat or drink ever in the first movie. But then again, he's only been alive for like 2 to 3 days in the first movie by the end of it. And this one is the first time we actually see the monster eat and drink, and like, he is a very hungry and thirsty individual. When he eats, he's just shoveling food into his mouth. When he drinks, he's just like gulping it down.
Yeah. The blind man figures out that he can't speak, But he's okay with that because he apparently has been spending the last of his days just like praying for God to send him a friend, and now he has a friend.
It's like in the credits, he's credited as the Hermit, which most hermits are people that willingly leave society. But he says that he's been alone for so long and that no other human being has ever come to his hut, and that all he's ever wanted is a friend to spend his time with, and God has finally sent him a friend. And like it's this really touching scene where he lets the monster like lay down in his bed, and like the monster's confused because this is the first human being ever to show him kindness. Like he gives him food and stuff like that, and he lays him down in his bed, and you see this old man like kneeling at his bed, like praying his hands, thanking God and crying. And the monster like pats him on the back and starts crying too, looking genuinely empathetic. It's a really touching scene. I like the way they did that.
Yeah, and then, he puts the blanket on the monster and he's like, and now you must sleep, my friend. And yeah, it's a great scene. Very well paced, very emotional.
So then we cut to like the next day. He starts teaching the monster, and the monster picks up pretty quickly. He teaches the monster like, this is bread. And I was like, bread. It's like this is food. Food.
This is wine, good.
Yeah, like Frankenstein really loves his vices. He loves wine, and the old man tries to make him a cigar, and he lights the match, and the monster freaks out, like ah. He's like, no, smoke good. And when he tries it, he just goes to town on that cigar. Like,
he loves it.
Yeah, he's just sucking away. He's like, smoke good. He's like, yes, apparently he is just a slave to his addictions. But, so he's teaching him all this stuff. And, of course, the monster gets up and grabs the violin that the old man was playing and shoves it in his arms. He's like, yeah, good. And he's like, oh, music, good.
Unfortunately, some hunters happen across the cabin, and
they see the monster, and there's oh my god, the blind man doesn't realize it's the monster. We must save him. So they try to shoot the monster. The monster sees that gun, and he's not having it this time. And he immediately fights them off. The poor old man, the hunters grab him and whisk him away from the monster. And in the scuffle, some straw or a broom gets into the fireplace, and the whole hut burns down. And I made this comment when we were watching it. It's because when you see Boris Karloff come out of the hut, you see just fire billowing out the door right behind him and out the window.
You could see smoke coming off of his shoulders. And
it's I made the comments man, when they had fire in these movies back in those days, they didn't fuck around with it, man. They used real fire and
burnt real shit.
It's no wonder that they had so many studio fires back in the day. If you're doing this kind of shit on a closed set, it's hey, let's make a full-on thatched hut and just burn that fucker down in this enclosed, very flammable, studio building that we're filming in. Surrounded by very flammable equipment, with film that is just slightly less flammable than kerosene. It's Jesus Christ. It's amazing that, those places didn't just go up.
Yeah, and also, a lot of the makeups used back then, they had highly flammable chemicals in them, the Wicked Witch and the Wizard of Oz. Apparently, to get that shade of green, they had actual copper in the paint, and she actually got some severe burns.
And they put metal shavings in the Tin Man's paint too to get a good authentic silvery look for the tin.
Yeah,
it's they didn't give a shit about the actor's health back in those days.
I'm not positive, but I heard there was actually lead in his paint.
There might have been. I mean, they said that they had filmed some scenes with the original actor for the Tin Man, but he reacted really fucking badly and almost died, so they had to get another actor in the 11th hour. And so the actor you see in the film is not the original actor for the Tin Man. But he worked out okay.
Yeah. But we'll discuss Wizard of Oz a different day.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about on that one.
Especially the sequel.
Oh, yeah. Would love to fucking talk about that. But, so we get So the monster now knows how to speak, and the monster is getting sick and tired of getting chased. He goes back to a cemetery, and by the looks of it, the same one where like they fished out some of his parts in the first movie, and he finds a tomb. And he's wandering around in there, and he fucking wanders into these two like grave robbers being paid by Pretorius to find some like
suitable
bones.
parts.
Yeah, they're looking for a good skeleton for like a woman, and they find one. And like it's kind of a funny scene, like when Pretorius finally gets the bones that he needs, and he sends these two guys off. It's like he pays them and they head off, and it's like if this keeps up, we may just have to give up and go to the gallows. It's like, yeah, I might prefer that. This ain't the kind of work for murderers. So yes, because murderers would rather get hung than have to go robbing graves. Apparently, some people do have standards.
There's that line Pretorius drops when they find the suitable corpse. As he says, "I hope she has sturdy bones."
And you just like you laughed when you said.
Well, I kind of and laughed at the same time.
It's like phrasing.
Yeah, given the poster movie cover for it, it says the monster demands a mate. What do you think?
Needs sturdy bones.
Needs sturdy bones. It's just like
good strong pelvis.
Pelvis, good.
But so Pretorius, like, he gets a bunch of the bones and collects them into this weird fucking effigy, and and has like dinner by candlelight while chuckling to himself, looking at these bones, like some sort of like macabre, like Vlad the Impaler. Something we have to mention about Pretorius, like the actor who plays him did a good job of just being an evil-looking motherfucker. He reminds me of the actor whose name I can't remember, the actor who played Grand Moff Tarkin from Star Wars and also played Dr. Frankenstein in the old Hammer films out of Britain.
Yeah, that reminds me, I need to get some of those Hammer films.
God, I cannot remember his fucking name. It's God, I feel ashamed for it, but oh well, you people know who we're talking about. But he looks very much like him. I wouldn't be surprised if he was related to the guy in some way. But so like, and he just looks evil, and like, man, when he squints up his face, he looks really fucking evil. Like his face gets super fucking wrinkly, and it looks like his eyes get bloodshot and red, like they're gonna pop out of his fucking head.
He gets wrinklier than the Emperor.
He's like, he can pull off that look without even getting force lightning to the face.
Yeah.
But so like Frankenstein sees him there, and he sees that like he's got food and drink, and so he wanders over, and so of course like Pretorius is like, oh look, it's the monster. I'm not scared of him. So he offers like some drink, and of course the monster's like, drink, good. Fucking starts chugging it. He eats some of the food, grabs a smoke, and like Pretorius is like, oh, so you understand. It's like, do you know who Mr. Frankenstein is? Like, Frankenstein made me. Frankenstein bad. It's like, make me alive. No, like alive. Better dead. It's like, fuck, man, that's pretty cold.
Yeah. But he sees the bones, and he asks if he's going to make another man like me. And Pretorius, he's like, oh no, not a man. I'm going to make you a woman.
Of course, Frankenstein, who now knows what a friend is and wants one, he's like, friend, good. He's like, I don't even know if he's concerned about a woman. He just wants a friend.
Yeah, he wants somebody to be nice to him and feed him chicken. I mean, that's all he wants.
Like, he just wants someone that's not going to, whip him and, shoot him and, light him on fire. Which is like, you can only, it's like, that seems reasonable to me. Yeah. I mean, what are your goals in life? To not be on fire, to be shot, and to not be beaten to death. Well, that's asking for a bit much, don't you think? Can't you, lower your standards a little bit? I mean, come on, you gotta be rational here.
Yeah.
You gotta let people shoot you a little bit, right?
Maybe smaller fires,
Maybe just a little bit of fire. Maybe just burn your fingers off.
Can we still stick the dogs on you if we get smaller dogs?
Maybe a little whip.
Just...
Maybe a softer leather on the whip.
Maybe some beagles instead of bloodhounds.
Man, that went dark, didn't it?
Well, we are horrible people.
And we are talking about the Frankenstein movies. So anyway, we cut to Frankenstein has finally been married to Elizabeth, and they're just about ready to leave. And of course, Pretorius shows up, and he's like, "Won't you reconsider?" And Frankenstein's like, "No, fuck off." And so Pretorius is like, "I thought you'd say as much, so I brought a little bit of leverage." And so he shows the monster, and like the monster's like, he's been filled in. He's like, "You make me woman. You do it."
And Frankenstein's still like, "Fuck you!"
Like, in certain terms. Like, he freaks out. He won't even talk to Pretorius while Frankenstein's in the room. While the monster's in the room. So Pretorius sends the monster off, and of course, like, with a secondary plan. And because he knows that Frankenstein's not going to be cool with this idea, so while Frankenstein's talking to Pretorius, the monster kidnaps Elizabeth, who of course is like, the cranky harpy woman. He's like, "Oh, miss, I don't feel safe leaving you alone." He's like, "Oh, don't worry. What's the worst thing that can happen to me?"
They still gave me some lines. I'm going to stick around.
They still gave me some lines, they did. Monster indeed. But of course she gets left alone, and of course she gets kidnapped by the monster and dragged off somewhere. So of course now, like, Frankenstein's like he's under Pretorius's thumb. He's like, if you don't help me make this woman, then you're never going to see Elizabeth ever again.
Yeah. Don't you want to consummate the marriage?
So they cut to, like, they actually go back to the tower from the original movie. Now, it's not the same set, but they did a pretty decent job making it look like it. The thing that gives it away is the staircase, because in the original movie, the staircase looked like a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, it looks like they just threw rocks in a pile and hoped
Cyclopean architecture.
Yeah.
It's like the steps are like a good 2 feet high and really fucking steep and really shallow. These are like good fall down and break your goddamn neck steps. The steps in the second movie are like a lot more like human normal steps.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you may not fall down and die on these steps. Maybe. But just like, I'll take a maybe.
Maybe it's better than definite.
Yeah. So they go back and they're working, and they try growing a heart, but that doesn't work. And so they send off like one of the murderers to go get a heart. And they keep convincing Frankenstein that, we're getting like all the parts that we can't grow. We're getting them from like accident wards and stuff like that, from policemen, from accidents, because accidents happen all the time. But in particular with the heart, they show that the guy he sends off, being a murderer,
just goes and kills a lady.
Yeah, like a lady's walking by and you just see her, like, you see him grabbing her. Of course, they don't show him like knifing her to death. But it's very heavily implied that, like, he kills her and, like, cuts her heart out.
Yeah, he's got blood on his coat when he comes back. That just seems to get conveniently ignored.
It's like Frankenstein's like, "Where'd you get this heart from?" He's like, the police officer. There was an accident.
I paid him 50.
50 crowns, I did. And so we got that. And so they get the heart, and Pretorius grew a brain from scratch. So they don't have the issue of like, it's a normal brain or it's an abnormal brain. No, he straight up grew a brain from scratch. So it's not abnormal or anything like that. It's not a criminal brain. It's just a straight up, perfectly good, never used brain. Fresh off the lot, never used.
That's how I like to buy my brains.
And so, like, they're getting ready. They're putting the thing together. Like, Frankenstein starts getting cold feet. And every time he does, the monster shows up and starts, like, strong-arming him. He's like, "Work!" He's like, "No, I need rest. I can't work like this." "Work now, rest later."
Rest when done.
And so, like, he's getting impatient for, like, his honeypot. And, like, meanwhile, Pretorius, like, he slips him a roofie. He slips him a roof. He gives him a cold Cosby, for lack of a better term. Well, there's much better terms, but if South Park used it,
if South Park used it, we can plagiarize it. Why not?
so like put the monster out long enough so that he's not harassing Frankenstein as much. And they even when Frankenstein gets cold feet, Pretorius uses an electrical device, which is really just a phone, to hear that Elizabeth is still alive, but she's in a cliff somewhere nearby, or like a cave. And so Frankenstein, he finally gets into it, and they get everything ready. And I guess because they needed to up the body count a little bit more, they wanted to show that the murderer was going to get punished, which I know they did that in a lot of movies. A lot of movies they demanded that if someone does something bad, that you had to show them getting punished.
Yeah. Because
people could not abide the idea of someone committing a murder or a crime and getting away with it in a movie back in the 30s and 40s. They just it could not be done. It wouldn't get past the censors.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, you see that while the two hired help guys are on the roof trying to get all the electrical equipment set up, Frankenstein just shows up and throws one of them off the roof for no reason in particular.
Yeah.
It's they keep telling him to get back. They try to scare him off with torches. He doesn't have any of it, and he just picks up one guy and just heaves him off the side of the roof. So long story short, electricity happens, body comes back down, and we repeat, she's alive, she's alive. Frankenstein, damn it, I keep calling it Frankenstein. It's not Frankenstein, it's Frankenstein's
a lot of people
monster.
make the mistake. It's normal. Even I make it sometimes, and it's
But his name is the monster. It's even in the credits. And I've been so good about that. But anyway, so the monster comes down, and he's very happy to see that, she's alive. So they unwrap her, dress her in some sort of weird-ass, wedding gown-looking thing.
Well, here's another part where censorship came into play. Originally, they just had her in bandages, and the censor said too much of her breast was showing, so they put that gown thing on her.
Oh, yeah, I guess because, not so much that her breasts were showing, but, it was too form-fitting.
Yeah.
So they wanted something to hide her figure. So they put her in essentially a tablecloth with a hole cut in it for her head to go through. And she's, of course, if you've ever seen anything spoofing the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, you know what she looks like.
Yeah, she's got the large
Marge Simpson hair with the lightning bolt in it.
Or the white jagged thing running along both ends, which they pumped her full of a lot of electricity. I guess that's where it came from. And something that I hadn't noticed before, she's got these scars that, these triangular scars that feed from her ears that go down along her jawline and go under her chin and connect. So it literally looks like that they cut off a woman's face and just stitched it to the front of the skull.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I had commented on is I've seen lots of pictures of the Bride of Frankenstein, and she doesn't always have those scars when I see the pictures. So I've always wondered what if
they've spoofed it. If you're seeing the Bride of Frankenstein from other works, where they've had the character. They probably didn't bother putting in the scars.
Yeah, but, this movie, you actually get to see the scars. So, for me, that was kind of cool to find out.
Yeah, like I said, it does look like they took a woman's face and they stitched it onto the head. So, to give her a pretty face. And so, you see her looking around, and I'm guessing because, she doesn't have any information in her brain already, she's just kind of looking around, her head darting around like a bird.
Yeah.
And she sees Henry Frankenstein and kind of gravitates towards him immediately, though she stumbles a bit. She seems to move towards him in generally. But when the monster shows up, he's extremely happy to see her. But she sees him and she freaks the fuck out. She starts screaming. The monster gets upset.
Yeah.
And so Frankenstein and Pretorius grab the girl. And they're trying to calm her down. They even sit her down on a couch, and the monster sits down right next to her, takes her hand, and is trying to be nice. It's
starts calling her friend. And
yeah, he's like, And like she's just kind of looking at him, but eventually she starts screaming again. And you see just the look of joy just ooze out of the monster's face. Yeah, he realizes this is not going to work. And he even says it as much. He says, she hate me like everyone else. And, God, you really feel bad for him there. Because, like, that's all he wants. He just like I said, all he wants is to just he wants a friend. He wants someone that's not going to try to murder him or, like, make use of him.
Yeah.
And, like, it's the one thing he can't have.
And meanwhile, while this is going on, the other murderer, he's bringing Elizabeth back, because apparently Pretorius is a man of his word.
Actually, no, it's like she's not even there. I mean, like, the other guy's not there. It looks like she got away from him.
I could have sworn there was a guy escorting.
No, there wasn't. She just you see Elizabeth running up the mountainside, and she, like, goes into the thing looking for Henry. And she's like, Henry, come with me. And, like, Henry's, like, trying to get her to go back. Because now you see the monster, he goes to a lever. And I'm surprised they didn't address this, but, like, every time the female monster, like, gets scared by the monster, she moves towards Frankenstein, as if she's instinctively going towards him for, like, help or for protection. And it almost looks like she prefers him over everyone else. And I thought for sure that they were going to go, like, to a darker route, where, like, the monster sees that she prefers Frankenstein, so he decides he's going to take Elizabeth.
That would have been interesting.
It would have. It was like that didn't exactly happen in the book, but it would have fit more in line with the book. Yeah. But instead, he goes towards this lever that is conveniently there, and apparently, every good laboratory is not complete without a self-destruct button/lever.
Yeah.
And so, like, Frankenstein's like, don't touch that lever, you fool! You'll blow us all up!
And then the monster, he looks towards Frankenstein and Elizabeth. He's like, you go, you live! And so they both take out. And then he looks at Pretorius. We belong dead.
Pulls the and it's like it's really sad. You see, like, the female monster, like, hissing at him because she knows that lever's bad news, and she just does that famous like hiss.
Yeah.
And so, like, you just see him weeping, just tears rolling down his cheek with just the saddest look on his face as he pulls the lever down. And it's really sad, you know. It's like, God, all he wanted was just to be happy. And like I said, it's the one fucking thing he can't have.
Yeah. But, and then they, in the movie there,
it's like, it's a universal picture. With, like, the thing, like the rotating globe and, like, the big airplane going around it at the end. With, like, the big bombastic music at the end. So, all in all, Fats, what'd you think of it?
Well, as we mentioned, there's some things we didn't like about the movie, like the shrieking harpy woman. Definitely could have done without her. As interesting as Pretorius' creations were, they were a little bit comical for the tone of the movie.
Yeah, they were really out of tone. I gotta agree.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see, like, some kind of homunculus type of monster rather than little people.
I would have liked to have seen, like, to fit more in tune with, like, how he worked with
like maybe some
Frankenstein, like a bunch of organs that he grew from nothing.
That would have been great too.
Like he says, like, in this jar I have a functioning human brain that I grew from nothing. In this jar I have a functioning human heart that I grew from nothing.
Yeah, here's some lungs, you know.
It's like, you get all your parts from the dead, but they're all used parts. Mine I grow all from stock. The only problem is I can't put them together in a way that they'll all work.
That would have been great.
It's like, that would have made a lot more sense, because, like, you know, you show me how to use corpses to make the body and, like, the skeleton, and I'll make all the organs.
I'll give you some perfect organs.
Yeah, organs. Like, you don't have to worry about a screwed up brain. You don't have to worry about a screwed up heart or lungs. They're all brand new organs.
But overall, the stuff with the monster, I think, was really well done. They actually put a lot of heart and emotion into what the monster has to go through. The scene with the blind man, that was very touching. And
I wish it had been a bit longer, but a lot of those, that's the kind of an issue I have with a lot of the old movies, like the old...
Yeah, this is actually a very short movie. It's less than an hour.
Well, it was like, I know that The Invisible Man is only about 40-some-odd minutes. It's like 42 or 48 minutes long. The original Dracula isn't even an hour. I don't even know if Frankenstein was an hour or not.
Frankenstein, it felt like it was over an hour long.
But this one definitely felt less than an hour.
Yeah. And the Bride, for as short of a role as she has, I do find her to be a very interesting character.
It's just a shame that she's in the movie for like all of like 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I do understand, after having seen it, how she has managed to get enough fame to actually be part of what most people consider the Universal Monsters. And it's just a shame they didn't give her more of a role.
Like what you said, I like how they continued the development of the monster, because in the first movie, you see that he's prone to violence and anger because of his abnormal brain, but also from the fact that like for every moment he's been alive, he's been getting tortured. And like every time he meets another human being, they're either trying to kill him or they're
scared
or they're like running from him. And the only person that didn't, he drowned by accident. And like the only time you get to see him like not be violent and be kind is like when you see the little girl. And they took that and they expanded on it so much more with the scene in the hut. Now the scene with the old man is taken from the book.
Yeah.
To go a little bit into the book here, the way the book goes, if you get a chance to read the book, you may want to pass on it, because I have the book, that book. Mary Shelley had a lot of great ideas, but her writing style was boring as fuck.
It's like chewing sawdust.
Yeah, it's like, God. Is like the first like 4 or 5 chapters got fuck all to do with like anything interesting. It's just like Victor Frankenstein going like, his how he was raised, how his parents are, how he got sick when he was a kid, the friends he grew up with in his home, how he read a lot of books, what he wanted to study when he went to college, how his family reacted when he went. It's just a lot of fucking nonsense that has nothing to do with anything. It's bullshit. It's boring. And it's so long. But there's in the book, when Victor creates the monster, he doesn't even know the monster's alive. When he finally finishes the monster and he looks at him from top to bottom, he realizes what he made. And for some reason, even though he made this thing himself, he freaks out and runs away in a mad, frantic panic. And so when the monster comes to, Victor's nowhere. Yeah. So he's like literally like a blank slate with nothing to go on. And every time he runs into someone, they freak out and attack him. He ends up wandering into a small home out in the forest, and he sees a family there. Now, because he's already run into a couple of people and they freaked out and or attacked him, he knows, like, okay, don't want them to see me. So he hides, like, in their firewood. They have, like, this big pile of firewood, like, in this small little cubby hole, and he, like, hides in there. And he watches them, and he watches them for months. And so, like, every time they go out, like, he'll go out and, like, scrounge for food, then he'll go back and hide. And they actually, like, he's learning from them. He's listening to them talk. He's listening to, like, the father read stories to his children. And he's listening to the grandfather tell stories to the children. And he's learning how to speak from them. He's learning how to read from, like, listening to the father read the stories. And when they're not in the hut, he goes in and like he takes the books and he like borrows them, reads them, and then puts them back, teaches himself how to read, teaches himself how to speak. And as thanks to them, he actually, like, whenever they're not there, he like gathers firewood and food and like leaves it there for the family. And the family thinks like, oh, it must be a good forest spirit. And then finally he gets up enough courage to approach the old man when he's alone, because the old man is blind, which is how we get the blind man from the movie. And by then he speaks, and he explains that, like, I want desperately to thank the family that I've grown to love over all this time. And I wish so terribly to thank you, but I know that you all won't accept me. And the blind man's like, well, if you're a good person, we'll accept you. It's like, you don't understand. Like, my appearance is frightening. The blind man's like, we don't judge people like that. And so he gets his hopes up, and then the family comes and they see him and they freak the fuck out. Like, the wife and the kids scream and run. The husband grabs a big hunk of wood and starts beating the monster. And the monster is just grabbing onto the old blind man's legs, crying and begging. He's like, please, please don't do this. I just don't want to be alone. I just want to be with someone. I don't want to be alone anymore. Please don't throw me out. And eventually, he's getting beaten with this log, and then finally, the father goes and he gets a gun, and he's gonna shoot him, and so finally, the monster runs off because he can't afford to get killed, and he's just fucking distraught, and it really makes you feel bad for him, and they got a lot of that scene in there.
Yeah.
Not quite the same effect, but still, they did a good job of summarizing it. I'm glad they didn't fit it in the original movie, but I'm glad they fit it in the second one.
Yeah. And all right, so that mostly covers the movie. Now, for those of you who might be aware, they're trying to make a what they call the Dark Universe. It's basically a shared universe of all the Universal monsters.
But they announced that they canceled it like months ago.
Well, I actually looked into it, and they decided to postpone it. They're putting more effort into it because The Mummy flopped.
The Mummy flopped big time. I still haven't seen it, but everyone says it was a giant steaming pile.
Yeah. And Dracula Untold was not originally supposed to be part of it, but they decided to go ahead and include it. Now, the next one they're working on is The Bride of Frankenstein. They said that they're going to put some extra effort into it because they feel it's a very important film, and they want to do it right. Now, you hadn't seen The Mummy. I think you've seen Dracula Untold, right?
Yeah, I saw Dracula Untold. I mean, I liked a couple of bits in it, but overall I thought the movie was pretty, substandard.
Now, if they do manage to put the funds together and they do, actually bother to finish it, do you think there's a hope that the remake of The Bride of Frankenstein is going to be any good?
Nowadays, probably not. The problem I have with a lot of movies nowadays...
one thing that I've seen that just, really upsets me about it is Angelina Jolie's signed on to be the bride. And...
no.
I don't care much for her acting. I don't think this is the right role for her.
Well, to be fair, I can't think of anyone else that'd be better suited. But I can't think of anyone that'd be suited, period.
Well, I could probably, if I put some time and thought into it, think of a good actress for it, but Angelina Jolie is not the direction I would go.
Do we want to go with another Grendel's mother with this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, Beowulf, that's something that a lot of people forget happened.
Oh, it happened.
I think they could have done a much better job with it.
They could have.
But they didn't. The problem I have with a lot of modern movies nowadays, and it's something I've complained about on some of our other videos, but something I could talk about for a full-on video, is the fact that I hate meddling producers, and I hate Hollywood executives sticking their dicks in movies where they don't fucking belong.
Yeah.
You get a lot of people that have, I've heard of a lot of movies that have, really, really good original scripts, really good directors attached to them, that have, a lot of potential, a lot of hope of being really good, and then they put some fucking producer on it that's known for just cranking out turds, and they fuck the whole thing up. The whole movie just becomes a list of check marks, and we need to get all the people in the test screenings happy. We can't release the movie until we get a 100% happy rating with the test screenings. And I don't know who the fuck they're getting for the test screenings. Probably people with lobotomy scars, like the background characters from Invader Zim. But whoever they're getting, they ain't doing their fucking job right. because a lot of these like focus group, like checkmark, like heavily Hollywood influenced movies are just garbage. They are garbage. They're watered down piss. It is just, it's sewage water is what it is. It's gray water. It was once pure, but you've thrown so much fucking trash in there that now it's just sewer water.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly willing to give it a try when it comes out, if it comes out.
But how are they going to do the Bride of Frankenstein without doing Frankenstein first?
That I don't know.
I mean, why not just do Frankenstein and make it... Because, like, if you put two movies together, it's about the length of a regular movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too sure. It is kind of confusing to me that they want to focus on the bride first.
I guess it's because they've made a lot of Frankenstein movies lately, like I, Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's true. Also, The Bride of Frankenstein's only really had one pseudo-remake, and that's a movie called The Bride, which I haven't seen, but I haven't heard anything good about it. Wikipedia doesn't even have a page for it to give you the plot synopsis, so that's...
Well, you don't consider that one movie about the guy that, like, you know, stitches together a bunch of prostitutes to make the perfect girlfriend, like a good sequel to The Bride of Frankenstein?
What, Frankenhooker?
Yeah, there you go.
No, I consider that a comedy.
It's like, well, it covers the basic idea. Let's make a woman out of a bunch of parts of dead women.
Well, yeah, I could think of it as a porn parody if they just went ahead and went full blown on it. But wasn't Jenna Jameson in that movie?
I don't know. I only saw the Cinemassacre review, and that was it.
I want to say she was in it, but I'm not positive. Either way, we'll talk about porn a different day.
But anyway, I had fun talking about this. I had fun I love a lot of classic movies. Even if it's a classic movie that I don't like, I will still sit there and watch it. That's just so I can say I watched it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like I may not like a classic movie, but you know, there's just certain movies you got to see. There's like movies like E.T., movies like, you know, the original Universal monster movies like The Wizard of Oz. You know, they're just iconic, you know? They're not even so much movies as they are just like moments in history on film. Like, you know, it's literally an era put in a bottle just right there for you.
Yeah. And like I said, I haven't seen these two. I'm definitely looking forward to the other 4 movies. Maybe
we'll talk about them too.
Yeah. If possible, it'd be cool to get at least 2 more Halloween movie reviews in before the end of the month. If you have any suggestions that you'd like us to cover, put it in the comments section. No promises, but we're going to try to see the new Halloween movie.
I'm not looking forward to it, but Fats wants to see it, and for all I know, I may enjoy it.
Yeah.
I may be pleasantly surprised.
I have high hopes for it, but
I hope I don't go into it like, you know, how you went into it, wanting to hate it and everything.
Yeah, if you can avoid that, that would be good for you. But
I certainly went in like that for Cradle of Fear.
And you did.
I was not disappointed in my predilections. So anyway, for those of you that are, stay fat, stay angry, and we'll be back to you soon with more regular videos and more Halloween ones, at least as quickly as I can get them out before the end of the month.
Happy Halloween.